What if nothing in your life was missing? What if every dream you've ever held, every ounce of joy, confidence, or purpose you long for, isn't something you have to chase, but something that's already wired into your very being? That's not a fantasy. That's the overlooked truth of your existence. From the moment you arrived in this world, something within you has been quietly humming, an invisible thread connecting your deepest desires to the creative force behind everything. You weren't born to struggle for scraps of happiness. You were designed to create, to expand, to experience fulfillment as a natural state, not a rare exception. This isn't about positive thinking or wishful daydreams. It's about recognizing a truth so profound and yet so simple that it often goes unnoticed. Reality is shaped from the inside out. That force within you, it's the same intelligence that paints the skies, beats your heart, and spins the planets in silence. And it's not waiting for permission to work through you, it already is. But here's the part most people miss. It responds to you, to your awareness, to your acceptance of who you really are. Neville Goddard taught that we don't need to look outward for miracles. The moment we become conscious of the power we carry, everything shifts. Suddenly patterns break, doors open. Life starts aligning not because we're lucky, but because we're finally aligned. And if you're hearing this now, it's no accident. Your inner compass brought you here. Curious, searching, ready. You clicked play not by chance, but because a deeper part of you knows there's more, not out there. In here, the blueprint has always been active, you just haven't been told how to read it, until now. Neville Goddard didn't speak about life as something we endure. He described it as something we imagine into being. To him, the world wasn't fixed, it was fluid, shaped by the pictures we held in our minds and the assumptions we made about ourselves. Most people move through life unaware that their thoughts are architects of experience. They blame circumstances, luck, or fate for their limitations. But Goddard insisted, those limits are illusions, phantoms born from false beliefs repeated so often they feel like facts. Think about how often you've told yourself, this is just how life is, or people like me don't get to have that. These inner dialogues don't describe reality, they create it, and until you challenge them, they run the show. Neville Goddard revealed that we are not spectators in life, we are creators. We don't react to the world, we reflect it. Your imagination, he said, is God in action. It is the divine creative power expressing itself through you, moment to moment. You're not separated from it. You are it. The beauty of this is that the shift doesn't begin with effort. It begins with awareness. The moment you realize your outer world is echoing your inner beliefs, you reclaim your power. Coincidences begin to take shape. Unexplained alignments fall into place. Your perception changes, and with it so does your reality. The story you've been telling yourself, the one where you're stuck or small or not enough, begins to dissolve. And something else begins to rise in its place. Truth. So if you're tired of feeling like life is something that just happens to you, if you've wondered whether there's a way to step into something more deliberate, more powerful, more meaningful, then you're already on the right path. Not because you have all the answers, but because you're finally asking the right questions. And according to Neville Goddard, that's where creation begins. Picture the sun, not just as a ball of fire in the sky, but as a source that never questions whether to shine. Its rays don't ask for permission to exist. They simply extend outward, naturally, effortlessly, carrying warmth and light wherever they reach. Now imagine this. You are one of those rays. That's how Neville Goddard described us, not as separate beings struggling to connect with something greater, but as living expressions of infinite power. You aren't reaching for the divine, you're radiating it. The life force behind galaxies and oceans is the same life force animating your every breath. But here's what makes it even more powerful. This creative energy doesn't just pass through you. It responds to you. Your assumptions, your inner conversations, your quiet beliefs about what's possible, they form the shape of your reality. To recognize this is to reclaim everything. No more waiting for signs. No more hoping something out. There will change. When you understand that you are the light, you stop chasing and start expressing. Neville often said that imagination is not a tool, it is the essence of who we are. And just like a sunbeam never doubts its source, you never need to question your access to divine intelligence. You're connected by nature, you're creative by design. So don't ask if the power is real. Ask whether you're willing to accept that it's already flowing through you. Because the moment you stop seeing yourself as separate from the source is the moment you realize you've been the source all along. Imagine your mind as a thermostat, not a measuring tool but a setting device. You don't just observe what's happening around you, you determine the climate of your life. Set your internal dial to gratitude, and soon enough, life mirrors. Reasons to be grateful. Set it to fear or lack and you'll start to notice things falling apart. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Your inner state tunes the frequency of your outer world. Neville Goddard understood this long before it was popular to talk about mindset. He taught that your assumptions operate like invisible programs. They're quiet, repetitive, and powerful, enough to build entire futures. One small shift, just one, can redirect your life completely. Like two planes leaving the same runway with a 1-degree difference in direction, they may seem parallel at first. But fly them out far enough, and they'll land on opposite sides of the world. Your thoughts are the same. A tiny internal correction today can send you somewhere entirely new tomorrow. The trick is to catch yourself. Notice where you've unconsciously set your inner dial. Are you stuck in the setting of scarcity, waiting for things to change before you feel safe? Or are you choosing abundance, even when the evidence isn't there yet? According to Neville, belief always precedes reality. You don't wait for proof. You become the proof. And as you consistently align your thinking with the life you want, rather than the life you fear, you begin to experience what he called the law in action. Not a mystical force outside of you, but a mirror reflecting everything you hold to be true. So next time things feel off, don't look around, look within. Ask yourself, what is my inner thermostat set to? Because life will adjust accordingly. Here's a truth that most never dare to fully accept. You're not reacting to life, you're generating it. Neville Goddard made it clear that your outer world is nothing more than a reflection of your inner convictions, and while this might sound abstract, modern science, specifically quantum mechanics, is finally catching up to what he taught decades ago. Let's break this down. In the quantum realm, particles don't exist in one fixed place until they are observed. They exist in a state of infinite potential, a wave of probabilities. But the moment an observer looks, those probabilities collapse into a single concrete outcome. In simple terms, your focus shapes your reality. Goddard wasn't a physicist, but he didn't need to be. His understanding of consciousness as the ultimate creative force mirrored what quantum theory now proves. Reality responds to awareness. Your beliefs collapse possibility into form, and this doesn't only happen on a cosmic scale, it happens in your everyday life. The thoughts you entertain most often, the feelings you repeat, the identities you assume, they all act as your personal observer effect, shaping the reality you move through. But there's a catch. This power works whether you use it consciously or not. If your internal programming is based on fear, unworthiness, or limitation, you'll manifest a world that proves those ideas back to you, not because they're true, but because you believe them. Neville emphasized that imagination creates reality, not eventually, immediately, vibrationally, before the physical even catches up. Your assumptions don't wait. They go to work behind the scenes, organizing conditions and coincidences in line with the role you've chosen to play. And if you've ever wondered why certain goals remain out of reach despite effort, this is why. There's a conflict between your conscious desires and your subconscious beliefs. You may want abundance, but if deep down you believe it's not safe or not deserved, the signals cancel out. Quantum scientists call this coherence. When all aspects of a system vibrate in harmony, the energy is strong and clear. Goddard called it the mental equivalent. The two are describing the same thing: alignment between what you want and what you expect. Here's how to build that alignment. Clarity of focus. Like tuning a radio, your thoughts must dial in to one specific frequency. Vagueness leads to noise. Clarity activates direction. Persistence. Not in forcing action, but in maintaining your internal image no matter what's happening outside. Reality is delayed feedback. Don't quit before the signal returns. Assumption. Live from the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Don't just wish for change, embody it. Letting go. Once you've impressed your vision upon the mind, release it. Trust that the process is underway, even when you can't see it yet. Neville Goddard didn't teach magic. He taught responsibility. He insisted that we stop outsourcing our power to luck, fate, or other people, and begin to recognize ourselves as the ones shaping the story. Every time you assume something to be true, about yourself, about life, about what's possible, you're collapsing probability into experience. You're stepping out of the field of maybe into the certainty of is. So if the universe is still holding infinite possibilities in its hands, ask yourself, which one have you chosen to observe? It's one thing to understand the concept of creation. It's another to live it. Neville Goddard didn't just speak about consciousness. He gave people tools to wield it. One of his most powerful techniques was what he called the assumption of the wish fulfilled. In modern terms, it's not about trying to get something, it's about becoming the version of yourself who already has it. You don't beg the universe, you embody the result. And that shift is everything. This isn't fantasy, it's precision. Just like electricity flows effortlessly through a wire, creative energy flows through consciousness that is aligned. The clearer your intention, the stronger the current. Neville often emphasized a specific process, not ritualistic, but structured. You can think of it as an inner formula for reality creation. Here's a simplified version adapted to his core: ideas, awareness of power. Begin by recognizing there is only one creative source and it lives within you. You are not disconnected from the infinite. You are a point of focus through which it expresses itself. Union with the outcome. Affirm that you and your desire are already one. Don't ask for it. Know it's already done, feel it as natural. Assumption. Enter the emotional state of the fulfilled desire, not just imagining it as possible, but as real. Your body, breath, and thoughts should reflect the experience now. Gratitude. This isn't just about being thankful, it's about confirming that the outcome has already occurred. Gratitude implies receipt, release, let go of control. Your job is not to figure out how. Your job is to remain in state. The details belong to the unseen. This isn't daydreaming, it's deliberate conditioning. And it's not done once, it's practiced. The more often you return to the state of the desired reality, the more familiar it becomes. Eventually, it turns into your natural point of view. Neville compared this to planting a seed. You don't dig it up to check if it's growing. You water it with confidence. You trust its process, even before seeing results. Another important idea he taught was not to speak of your desires casually. Protect them. Let them build in silence, not out of fear but out of focus. Sharing your vision too early can expose it to doubt, your own or others. So use these tools not as hopeful attempts, but as sacred acts of alignment. Don't just wish for transformation. Practice it. Create the conditions in your inner world, and your outer world will have no choice but to reflect them. Most people don't realize it, but their inner world is cluttered, not with physical mess, but with outdated beliefs, unchecked assumptions, and thought patterns that run on autopilot. This is where Neville Goddard's teachings become especially practical. The mind must be kept clean if it's going to create clearly. Every belief you hold, consciously or not, is a command to the universe. And like a computer running background programs, many of those commands are still playing from childhood, past disappointments, or inherited ideas that no longer serve you. Mental housekeeping is the process of noticing those patterns and choosing again. Start by becoming aware of what you say to yourself. If your inner dialogue is full of doubt, scarcity, or resentment, it's no wonder your outer life reflects struggle. You can't expect to live abundance while constantly rehearsing failure in your mind. Neville taught that the outer world is simply a projection of the inner state. That's not metaphor, it's literal. Change your dominant thought and the screen of your life begins to rewrite itself. But awareness alone isn't enough. You have to replace the old with something new. This is where visioning comes in. Visioning isn't about wishing. It's about forming a vivid, emotional, and consistent image of your desired life, then living as if it were already true. You close your eyes, see the scene, feel the outcome, breathe it like it's real. Why? Because the mind doesn't distinguish between imagination and memory. What you imagine repeatedly becomes accepted as fact. And once the subconscious accepts, it as real reality begins rearranging itself to match. Neville emphasized that these visions must be specific and emotionally charged. A vague wish gets vague results. But a scene you've visited 1,000 times in your imagination, that's a blueprint. That's a seed with roots. Mental housekeeping is removing the weeds, fear, doubt, worry. Visioning is planting the new. So, ask yourself daily, what thoughts am I feeding? What pictures am I rehearsing? Because whether you realize it or not, you're always building something. The question is it something you actually want to live in? You've heard the concepts, you understand the principles. Now it's time to apply them. Daily, deliberately, and without hesitation. Neville Goddard never intended his teachings to remain intellectual. For him, transformation was something lived, not studied. That's why this challenge isn't about learning more. It's about doing the work consistently until the results become impossible to ignore. Here's how it works. For the next 30 days, you'll commit to showing up for your inner world with the same dedication you'd give a major life goal. Not casually, not when it's convenient, daily. Your 3 core practices. Base. Imaginative practice. Every day, set aside time to vividly imagine one scene from your ideal life. It should be short, specific, and emotionally charged. Feel it as if it's happening now. Hear the sounds. Notice the sensations, let it move you. This is not a mental movie. It's an inner experience. State revision before sleep. Review your day. Anywhere you reacted in fear, self-doubt, or limitation, revise it. Imagine the scene again, but this time with the outcome you prefer. Neville called this mental correction, and he believed it rewrote the subconscious blueprint before the day is locked into memory. Gratitude reset. Take a few moments to feel genuine appreciation, not for things you already have, but for what you've assumed is already done. Gratitude, when felt in advance, is one of the strongest signals you can send. It implies that the reality you want is real enough to be thanked for. Do these 3 things every single day without skipping. If you miss a day, restart the count. Not as punishment, but because consistency is what reshapes the inner landscape. You're not doing this to get results instantly. You're doing this to build identity. You're becoming someone who lives in the end, who walks in alignment, who chooses their reality by choice rather than habit. Neville Goddard believed that persistence in assumption would harden into fact, not because of magic, but because your inner state, held long enough, becomes your outer condition. So 30 days, no shortcuts, no negotiating, just a quiet, powerful commitment to step fully into the role of creator. The question isn't whether it will work. The question is, are you willing to become the version of yourself that no longer asks that question at all?